Good evening, everybody. We'll get started. We just have a single item on tonight's agenda, which is the public meeting. I will read a public meeting declaration, notice of collection. Personal information collected as a result of this public hearing and on the forms provided at the back of the room is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making a decision on this matter. All names, addresses, opinions, and comments may be collected and may form part of the minutes, which will be available to the public. Questions regarding this collection should be forwarded to the Director of Planning and Development. The purpose of public meetings is to present planning applications in a public forum as required by the Planning Act. Following presentations by the applicant, committee members will be afforded an opportunity to ask questions for clarification or further information. The meeting will then be open to the public for comments and questions. Interested persons are requested to give their name and address for recording in the minutes. There is also a sign-in sheet for interested members of the public at the back of the room. No decisions are made at public meetings concerning applications unless otherwise noted. The public meeting is held to gather public opinion. An exception to this rule is combined reports, which consolidates the public meeting and comprehensive reports. These applications are deemed by staff as straightforward and routine. The business practice has been in place for a number of years and is received by the applicants as efficient customer service and effective use of committee time. Please note that staff use discretion in determining if an application can be combined public meeting comprehensive report to expedite the approval process. Public meeting reports are provided to inform the public of all relevant information. Information gathered is then referred back to planning and development staff for the preparation of a comprehensive report and recommendation to Planning Committee. This means that after the meeting tonight, staff will be considering the comments made by the public in their further review of the applications. When this review is completed, a report will be prepared making a recommendation for action to the committee. The recommendation is typically to approve with conditions or to deny. This committee then makes a recommendation on the applications to City Council. City Council has the final say on the applications from the city's perspective. Following council decision, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kingston to the local planning appeal tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Kingston before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. Excuse me. So, tonight's public meeting, held pursuant to the Planning Act, is the zoning bylaw amendment. Excuse me. And it is in regards to the City of Kingston Recreational Leisure Services Department and on behalf of the city for 15 Grenadier Drive. So, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of Planning Committee, staff, and members of the public. My name is Yuko LeClair. I'm a land use planner with Foten Consultants, and I'm presenting an application for zoning bylaw amendment at 15 Grenadier Drive. This is the site of the Kingston East Community Center. I will be joined following my presentation by Dan Wojcik from Venton Group Architects, who are the applicants. who have submitted this application on behalf of the City of Kingston's Recreation and Leisure Services Department, represented this evening by Mr. Luke Falwell. So our subject site is located in the city's east end. It's at the southeast corner of the intersection of Grenadier Drive and Highway 15. You can see from this image here that it's at the kind of the periphery of two subdivisions, the Grenadier Village subdivision just to the north, and then the Point St. Mark subdivision to the west. It's also just to the north of LaSalle Secondary School and kind of forms the western portion of Grenadier Park. This neighborhood is generally in the range of 1 to 2 stories in height in terms of the existing built form. And the site is well served by Kingston Transit, being on express bus routes 601 and 602. So our subject site currently includes some programming related to Grenadier Park. I'm going to grab my little mouse and just show you. So there's a couple of pathways passing through the site, connecting Grenadier Drive and Winfield Crescent to LaSalle Secondary School. There's also an existing skate park just more or less central to the site right here. I mentioned before the kind of mix of uses. It is generally residential to the north and west. There is some commercial along Highway 15. And I want to note here, before I move on to the next slide, talking a bit about the proposed development, what is there now? So just to the southwest of the site is a signalized intersection. So this intersection provides access to LaSalle Secondary School currently. It is the main access to the school and the parking areas of the school, which are generally back here. There is a little bit of parking in the front for visitors, but most of the parking at the school is in the rear. Bus loading also kind of happens along the periphery of these parking areas. And you'll note that that periphery is just to the east of our subject site. So what's the proposed development here? The Kingston East Community Center is a roughly 20,000 square foot community center, which will include a outdoor splash pad just to the northwest of the building. The building footprint shown here in brown. So there's a splash pad and pathway connections kind of linking to the existing pathways to the building. The skate park would remain. There'd be some additional landscaping along the southern part of the site, an outdoor lounge area, and that's where the main entrance is intended to be. You'll see from this image as well that there's no new vehicular entrances proposed off of Grenadier Drive or Highway 15. The intent is to use the existing LaSalle Secondary School access and that signalized intersection to provide vehicular access to the community center. And that would be in partnership with the secondary school, of course. There is also, just along the southern part of the site on the LaSalle Secondary School property, there is not currently a sidewalk that runs along the length of that driveway. So as part of this development and to improve pedestrian connectivity to the community center, a new sidewalk would be built and making that connection. You can see as well that most of the parking area on the site is located just to the east of the community center. 49 parking spaces are proposed. That's based on a parking ratio that was developed by a traffic consultant who looked at a number of other community facilities in the city of Kingston, in particular the Rideau Heights Community Center, looked at the demand that was there and developed a ratio that worked for this site. So the vast majority of the parking demand on the site will be met by what's there. For those very special situations where there is a need for overflow parking, there is that supply over right next door at LaSalle Secondary School, and the programming that's being developed for the community center is being developed in partnership with the secondary school so that the peak traffic demands are not going to overlap, so that that parking area will always be available to the school and or the community center. I'll note before I move on that this development proposal is going through the technical review process, so there are going to be some changes to the plan. Some of the general, what I'm showing you here on this slide, that generally is not going to change, but some of the details might change, some of the dimensions and so on. Those will be refined through the technical review process, and that's normal. There will be a site plan, a landscape plan developed as part of the site plan control application to deal with the green space and changes in the green space as well. So what's the purpose of this application this evening? So this is a zoning bylaw amendment application that's to apply a site-specific institutional zone on the community center site. This will define accessory uses to be located within the community center and apply some new parking standards. So that's really what the zoning amendment is for. Looking at this site from a land use planning perspective, the official plan designates the property as open space, which allows a broad range of recreational uses, including recreational centers and active and passive recreation uses. So the community center and the uses contained within the community center are permitted within the land use designation of the official plan. The official plan designation also encourages buildings to be minimized. So I didn't mention this in the previous slides, but the proposed community center is going to be 1 story in height. And I mentioned before that the neighborhood is 1 to 2 stories in height. So that community center will fit in from that perspective in terms of building height with the surrounding neighborhood. And that's also why the center is located kind of in the southeast corner of the site, to provide a little bit more separation and minimize it and maximize the amount of green space on the property. So from a land use planning perspective, this proposed center and the proposed zoning amendment conforms to the official plan. Now, looking at the current zoning on the site, it is dual zoned, which means there are 2 zones affecting the property. The northwest corner of the site is in an institutional zone, and then the majority of the site where the proposed community center is going to go is in the development zone. That development zone is a zone that exists to allow whatever's there to continue, but whenever a land use change is proposed, it's always necessary just about always necessary to change the development zone to something more appropriate because it is a very restrictive zone. So the purpose of the zoning amendment is to change that development zone on the site to a site-specific institutional zone. So that's what you're seeing here. The list of permitted commercial accessory uses within the community center are listed here as well. So this reflects what's proposed to be within the community center. It's very likely that through the technical review process with the city, the needs will be refined and there will be some additions or changes to that list. But this is what was submitted as part of the original application, and this is what we're looking at this evening. Any changes to the plan, I'll note, will be covered through a later staff report at the time of recommendation. The zoning bylaw amendment application would also change the parking ratio to 1 parking space for 38 square meters. The current requirement is quite a bit lower. It's 1 space per 9 or so square meters, which would require over 200 parking spaces for the site, which is an absolute oversupply of the land and represents a very poor use of the space when we're talking about a community park and community center. So the zoning would allow that. It would also allow that off-site parking to occur at LaSalle Secondary School when needed. And it would reduce the area of parking spaces. So that's very much a technical amendment. The City of Kingston has 5 zoning bylaws. One of the zoning bylaws, this particular one dealing with the former Pittsburgh Township, has a minimum area requirement for parking spaces. None of the other zoning bylaws do. All of the other bylaws just have a width and length requirement. So this one has a width, a length, and an area requirement. So we're asking to amend that area requirement to reflect the width and the length. The width and the length that are proposed are 5.2 meters by 2.6 meters. These are standard parking space dimensions that are applied throughout the city and are reflected at places like the TET Center and a lot of new development across the city. So that more or less wraps up my presentation, where this is a zoning amendment to permit the development of a new community center, apply appropriate site-specific standards, including accessory uses. It conforms to the official plan, to the provincial policy statement, and represents an appropriate form of development that's been developed in accordance with community consultation and council direction, and represents an appropriate extension of uses at the adjacent park. And with that, I'll wrap up and welcome any questions or comments.
Great. Thank you very much. I'll turn to staff. Any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, staff confirm that notice of this public meeting has been completed in accordance with the Planning Act. This included signage posted at the site at least 20 days prior to the public meeting. Notices were mailed to all 71 property owners located within 120 meters of the site, and a courtesy notice was published in the Kingston Whig Standard on September 25th. To date, staff have not received any comments or questions with respect to the application, but any comments received this evening and in the future will be addressed through a comprehensive report coming back to this committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll turn to the committee now. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Turner.
Thank you. This is great. I'm so excited to see this come through. It's needed over on the other side of the city. It's a growing area. My question is, in my district, Center 70 has a park and ride, and I don't know if you can answer this, but the bus stop, is there a park and ride over on that side, or would this be used as a park and ride as well? And if so, would you have enough parking for it?
So I think I can answer that, Mr. Chair. There is not a parking ride proposed. There is a transit stop just next to the intersection, providing access to the secondary school. There's a parking ride in the east end, kind of at the end of the bus route, but there isn't one right here. And there's not one proposed.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just know the answer to this, but do they ever think about, like, in this infill world, why we wouldn't design it for 2 stories and then rent space out so that you could actually recover costs? I think that I see it as a benefit because that's one way to not just be a cost to the taxpayer, but the potential would be to be able to find an appropriate lease. And then, and it's a beautiful building, it's a beautiful space. I always think 1 story is disappointing. So.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll just quick on that from an OP perspective. Plan direction for a public park is to minimize building scale. There's certainly an advantage from a policy perspective of this current design, but maybe I'll turn that over to Parks and Leisure Rec and Leisure if there's any other comments there.
Sure, through Mr. Chair. That's not something we heard through our public engagement process, that there was a need for that type of space. And our experience has been in our community centers that the space is not necessarily leased at a market rate. So we'd be constructing it and not likely receiving rates to offset our operational cost. And we know that we've got a fairly strong and thriving business park to the north, and that would be our recommendation for that type of use and not at the community center.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, I'll open this for the public. Anybody on this side? You can grab a microphone right here in this very first chair, if you so choose, and this one here. So please identify yourself with your name and your address. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Frank Dixon, 495 Alfred, Apartment 2, K7K4J4. Thank you to staff for the report and to Mr. LeClair for the presentation tonight. I think it's a brilliant concept, project very much needed in an area where there's a lot of growth going on residentially and also with business. I've got praise for the conceptual plan. I think the design is clever. You got a high rate of optimizing the surrounding elements. I like the parking rationale as well. Good fit with the neighborhood. So my questions are to do with the page 22 in the package, detailed design aspects. And I know this is still very much in progress, but I'm looking at the gym that is portrayed there. And I'm a sports person myself, been around gyms, kind of like a gym rat sort of person, like sports a lot. And the sports aspect, I think, is important to the facility. So what I'm wondering is this a full-size gym from the standpoint of playing a competitive basketball or volleyball game on the surface? I see a gymnasium 100 there. So I'm wondering if that refers to the length of the court, because the basketball court is 94 feet. So that's one question. And the other question tied in with that is volleyball and basketball are your 2 main court sports. Popular around the world and with a variety of ages. And when you're playing volleyball, you have to have some height to the court. And I'm wondering if that has been considered in terms of the serves and returns. If you have a roof that's too short, you get the ball bouncing off the roof, right? So that's maybe a detailed design consideration. The other part has to do with, you've got a walking track shown in both directions around the perimeter of the court, and that's great. And I'm wondering if there's been some thought put into having a competitive track installed there. Now, you maybe have it at LaSalle, or you have the dome down at the bottom of the hill near RMC, that's nearby. But so that's just a question maybe as you're going forward. And then my other question ties into what a member of the committee was just talking about. In terms of the 1 versus 2 stories, if you would maybe design with the potential for adding a story later on, according to development issues, if there's going to be a lot of development over there, which we know there is, maybe not having 2 stories now, but you can design it with the idea that you may want to add a story later on and you have some architectural aspects with that. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Just quick explanation. We all of the questions go forward, and both our staff and the proponents planner write down the questions, and at the very end they address them en masse. So we aren't ignoring anybody. So go right ahead.
I'm Ray Mollison, Mollison, unlike the Molson beer. My address is 13 Winfield Crescent. I've been a resident of Grenadier Village for 33 years. I live right on the corner of Winfield and Grenadier, right next to the proposed community center. In my 33 years of living there, I've experienced a lot of growth in the area, as well as more use of the park area. Now, along with that, I'm concerned about the given address of 15 Grenadier Drive. That's going to encourage people to come to 15 Grenadier Drive and park along Grenadier Drive, as well as Winfield Crescent, because it happens now. For example, the skateboard park. I'm not really pleased with some of the street signing. It's improved as far as the new crosswalk there, but even that needs some extension of no parking areas because of the design of the curve in the street. So I'm requesting that the address be changed to the address, whatever it is for LaSalle Secondary School, to encourage people to come to that address. In other words, X number, County Road 15, because to address it as it currently is, people are going to take Grenadier Drive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I saw a couple people nodding, so I think that may be a sensible request. Next, go right ahead.
Okay. My name is Jacqueline Bartnik. I live at 104 Point St. Mark Drive. I've lived there for 27 years. I've noticed a lot of growth. The first question I have is concerning the widening of Highway 15, because I don't know, I'm looking at your proposed plan, and I don't know how close it's going to come to the widening, because the sidewalk that we have right now is where Highway 15 will be proposed to be. The Parks Canada has told us very point blank that they will not agree to the bridge unless we address the issue from Gore Road along Highway 15 to the military base, and that has to be widened. So I don't know where the building is going to go in comparison to where the future sidewalk and the future Highway 15 is going. And my other concern is, because I live in the area, I have watched the traffic, and I can tell you for a fact that when people are trying to turn into the high school, we are so blocked up, backed up from people and students trying to turn into the high school that the highway does not work. It doesn't run. And so we are left waiting for people to turn into the high school. And I don't know how you're going to be able to use all the parking in the back, because the high school parking is packed with students. Students bring their cars and their trucks and their mummy's cars and trucks. And the other issue I have, which is a very dangerous issue, is if you're coming out of, say, LaSalle High School, and you're going to turn right, and the bus is dropping and picking people up, you have to go over the yellow line to get around the bus. I do not understand why the city doesn't put all the buses on Highway 15 and Highway 2 in a lane off, so that we can go safely down Highway 15. Because right now, we cannot do that. And the worst spot is at LaSalle High School. So that is my concern. And I've watched people park, you know, when they come with the soccer moms and pops, and like that gentleman says, they will park along Grenadier where it says no parking, and they'll just go right on the grass and park there. So, good luck, people.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Now we're on. Okay, sorry. Thank you. Mr. Chair, thank you. My name is Mark Murphy. I live at 36 Grenadier Drive, across from the park, from the proposed development. So I'll keep this short. I'd first like to say I'd like to thank city staff because they've listened to me rant and rave now for September of, was this 2016 or 2017? I went to check my emails and I can't remember exactly when this all started. But this meeting was very well advertised, unlike the very first meeting when, as far as I know, no one attended, because I haven't been able to find out who was at the first meeting, if any. I know there was a meeting, but I don't think anybody was in attendance. That was the only meeting there's been sponsored by the city. We found out about it, all the neighborhood found out about it on the local news a few weeks later when the motion was going to city council, and within 10 days, we got together a petition of 300 signatures of people in the neighborhood opposed to this development. It is a beautiful piece of land. We'd like to leave it as a park. So we presented that petition to council, and it was a very busy agenda, and we lobbied all the councilors, and as our city councilor told us that represents us, petitions don't matter. We were getting it whether we liked it or not. I just want to thank, and again, I don't want to, because Luke and I I don't know how to direct Luke, if I could call him by what his title is, or I can use his first name. I don't want to be impolite, but I just want to say he has, I've already said he's been very good. The rest of city staff have been very good. There just hasn't been any public meetings on this proposal. There was one that our city councilor held at the fire hall, which about 120 people showed up to, and depending on who you talk to, I say there was 100 of the 120 opposed to it. Some people say there was 60. We do agree that the majority of people at the meeting were opposed to this project. We want to keep our park. We did scramble. We did get 300 signatures who were opposed to this development, and it didn't do any good. So everybody's sort of given up and have, I guess, we've gone to the open houses, and this is going through. My main concern now is what else happens to the park. Because I said right from the start, right from the very first meeting that we had with city staff, and they were great to sit with us, I said, once you start in this park, you're not going to stop developing. And the original plan that was out 3-4 years ago, whatever, has a building, there's no map up there, but from the tennis courts out to the road. And my concern is that it's going to be affordable housing or apartments, or, you know, LaSalle's 50 years old. Do they redevelop and repurpose that school and build a new school farther down the park? That's my concern, because now the half the park is gone to this development, which the neighborhood, again, is all opposed to. My concern is that the city is going to develop the whole thing, and the lack of communication for this development is on record, and everybody knows. This time there was lots of notice. It went out to everybody. Nobody got any notice of the first public meeting. And I believe if this much notice had been given 3-4 years ago, we would have filled the room and this development wouldn't have happened. We don't want to lose our park. Thank you very much. So, city staff and everybody, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Any further members of the public like to ask questions? I feel like an auctioneer. Going, gone. Thank you very much. I'll give both the proponent planner an opportunity and staff to address some of those questions that were posed. And then we'll go back and give committee members an opportunity to speak. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I'll do my best, but I will call on Dan from Benton Group Architects for some assistance here. So the first question that I have has to do with the length of the volleyball and basketball courts, and I think that.
Yeah, so my name's Dan from the Vents. I'm the design architect on the project. And just to address the questions of the gentleman regarding the sports facilities, we're planning for 2 volleyball courts, pickleball courts, and a basketball court. And we've provided sufficient height as per regulations for volleyball to address your comment about serving volleyball. And I also wanted to mention through the design development, the plans that you have today are preliminary. And through design development, working with Rec and Leisure and the city, we've actually increased the inbound areas around the court in order to facilitate better play for basketball. So I think you'll find that the facility that we're providing, including the walking track, will accommodate all of the recreational activities that you described today.
Thank you. So I think that answers the length of the court, the height of the court question, and the, I guess the track question. Now another question was regarding the possibility of adding a second story in the future.
Not something that was contemplated by the design team. It wasn't part of our mandate as provided by the city. Something that is definitely possible, but it's never been part of our scope of work for the project. We've been tasked with designing a facility with a functional program that was provided to us by the city, and that's what we've done to date.
Thank you. There's a question regarding the civic addressing of the site and whether that can be changed. I'm not sure whether that's best addressed through Recs and Leisure or planning. Through Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. We can take that away and address that in the comments coming back in the comprehensive report. We'll need to check the civic addressing bylaw to see what the options are.
Thank you.
On the question regarding the widening of Highway 15 and the relationship to the building, I'm just going to step over here and just refer you to some of the drawings here. So looking back on this drawing, you can see this community center. I'm going to use my mouse here and try and orient you a little bit. So this is the eastern property line of the subject site. The tennis courts are down here, and then this is the southern property line. On this snapshot, you can't actually see the western part of the site, so you can't see where Highway 15 is. So if I go to this image here, you can see, if I'm back and forth between the two a little, you can see the skate park right here. On this image, the widening of Highway 15 is going to occur in this area here, and the community center is located entirely in this kind of area of the site. So the widening of Highway 15 is not going to affect the building, and the building itself will not affect the widening of Highway 15. On the question of, on the question through you, Mr. Chair, of turning into the site and turning north of the site, the traffic study did review those possibilities, both in light of the existing Highway 15 configuration, the 2-lane, and the proposed widening to 4 lanes. The traffic study found that the community center, the traffic volumes that will be generated by the community center are not going to significantly change the level of service that exists on Highway 15. So there's some recognition that Highway 15 is an extremely busy road, and during the morning peak, southbound traffic is extremely packed, and northbound traffic is the same. This community center is not going to exacerbate that situation, which is already challenging. That's what the widening of Highway 15 is planned to do.
I'm sorry. We're not allowed to enter into a dialogue. They'll address the question. If you had, I'm sorry, I don't want to rudely cut you off, but if you have a further question, you can definitely put it in writing, and our staff or the planner will address it. But we have to avoid entering into a dialogue. Thank you.
And through you, Mr. Chair, the vehicles turning right out of the site, there was a question there about the bus. The site would be exiting, traffic from the site is going to be entering and exiting from this signalized intersection. And in terms of vehicles turning right and the location of that bus stop, I'm confident that that's being reviewed as part of the widening of Highway 15, but I think I would defer to staff on any specifics there if there's anything that can be said at this time.
Through your chair, I can add that we're working closely with engineering on the detailed analysis of the Highway 15 EA in the works, and those will all be incorporated into the timing of this project. I'm not certain on which will come first, but they will be coordinated together for sure.
Thank you.
And through you, Mr. Chair, I might add as well that the traffic consultants that were retained for this project are the same consultants that are working on the environmental assessment. So they're familiar with both and are perfectly suited to integrate the two plans. On the matter of parking along Grenadier illegally, I think that's unfortunately a bylaw enforcement matter and not something that I can really speak to at this time from a Planning Act perspective. In terms of question, so my last question on my list is regarding future development of the community park space. Again, I think I would have to turn that over to city staff through you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the area referring to is identified in the original concepts presented as future activities on the site, just north of the tennis courts that you can see in that diagram on the screen. It's to the right of the red line. It was staff's intention that the future activities would be play structures, amenities that would complement the community center. Staff does not have any plans to develop anything beyond that, and even those are preliminary at this time, as would be required for any building development on this site. It would require council direction and approval at a later date. But that is not direction that staff have received that I'm aware to pursue any further.
So that question, I believe. Thank you. I will turn to the committee. Are there any further questions? Yes, Councillor Turner.
Thank you. I just have a question. This might be redundant, but when the traffic study is done and proposed, there was a mention, someone mentioned earlier about buses turning in and people turning in and out of the high school. Do you think that they would propose to put a turning lane in possibly in the traffic study? Would that be something they would consider?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have that answer for you, but I can ask our engineering team, both the consultant that we utilized and our City of Kingston Engineering Department. I just want to clarify, are you referring to a turning lane as you exit the LaSalle property or as you're coming down Highway 15?
Possibly both. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, Councillor. Councillor Oosterhoff. I've been walking.
That's a double
and knocking on too many
double
doors.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. I just empathize for the gentleman that spoke about the address. But what I see on here, and it's kind of hard to interpret these, it's very, very small. But it doesn't look like there's any driveway access from Grenadier to this facility. It seems like it's a shared driveway with the high school. Am I seeing that correct? So why it would have a Grenadier address, and maybe it would be due diligence. I know you're going to consider it, but it certainly gives it validity that confusion and for people, and we really want it, you're building it with the least impact to the community. There's a very valid concern, so I really appreciate that content. We could make it right off Dean and you know, that the community is not impacted negatively. It's a very important point. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Seeing no further, could you take the chair just for one quick question, if you would?
Sure, Chair, and I recognize you.
Actually, it's a comment. I know that Mr. Murphy raised the concern about this property being used for residential development in the future. I'll ask this question of zoning. I think it's a rhetorical question. I think I know the answer to it. It would be zoned parkland, so if other uses were ever perceived, it would have to go through a complete public meeting process to rezone it for residential or else. Is that accurate?
That's correct. The official plan designation is open space, so to introduce a residential use in the property would trigger official plan amendment as well as zoning bylaw amendment with a full public process.
So both an official plan would have to be. I think we can all remember when the Memorial Center parkland was being proposed for a residential development. It was the largest petition in the history of Kingston that came forward. And so in politics you can never say never, but the chances of that being anything but open space designated, I think the whole city would rise up if we were proposing to develop it for anything but open space parkland. But so I hope you never ever have to say I told you so. But thank you.
I return the chair.
Thank you. So I will declare this public meeting closed. And is there anything that staff need to say? We're good to go? Okay. So we'll go to our regular planning committee meeting, which has nothing on the agenda except confirmation of minutes. So I'm looking for an approval of the agenda. Everybody raise their hand. You got it? Confirmation of minutes. We need a mover and a seconder. Thank you. Councillor Turner? Oh, yeah, good. Disclosure of, confirmation of minutes. All those in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. No delegations, no briefings. Business? Seeing none. Motions? None. Notices of motion? Other business? We had one piece of correspondence. Date and time of the next meeting, November 1st at 6:30. And motion to adjourn. Again, everybody but Mr. McLaren raised their hand. So I guess he wants to stay. All those in favor? Carried.